Freddy vs Jason is the final movie in both the Nightmare on Elm Street and the Friday the 13th franchise. Now the hype for this movie to be made was intense. Both being two popular slasher flicks in the 80s that were both mutually iconic made it so that people wanted to see such a similar duo together in a fight to the death, in a franchise where none of them seemed to fucking die or end. Interestingly, both franchises had a supposed final movie, only to follow it up with another movie to resurrect it. Friday the 13th even did this 2 times. Now, in literature terms, we would call this an epilogue. However, it seems like with the countless editions with countless ends that it's unclear what movies would qualify as epilogues. Would every movie after the 4th Friday the 13th movie up until the 9th be one drawn out epilogue, with the 10th film being an epilogue to the epilogue? This is fucking insane. And when rumours are being spread that there'd be a Freddy vs Jason, fans are obviously going to be left with anticipation. Fans were already discussing this idea, some when meeting the actors, asking who'd win in a fight. Now the idea was negated for quite some time by the creators of both franchises, mainly due to who would have the rights to the movie, but after New Line Cinema got the rights, we were finally promised that the movie would finally come out. The movie took 10 years to release and people were getting impatient, so to pass the time we got probably one of the better sequels in the Nightmare franchise, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and for Friday the 13th we got this horse plopping. And before that horse plopping, we were able to get a nice teaser for Freddy vs Jason in the 9th Friday the 13th movie, and eventually fans got the movie they desired. Or so it seems. IMDb gave it a slightly above average rating of a 5.8, whereas Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic were less generous, giving it below average ratings. Quite a lot of people seem to have split reaction to this movie, with critics either loving or hating it. The movie starts off showing Freddy Krueger's backstory. It shows that much like Chucky, they used to have a persona as a human being for killing innocent civilians. In Freddy's case, to really harp on the scariness of him being a fucked up guy, they show that Freddy actually murdered children. Now, judging by the flashback in a splice with a narration over it, I'm guessing Freddy Krueger's smoking addiction hasn't paid off from that well.
Dozens of children would fall by my blades.
Now, you may have cheated death, but you can't cheat the dangers of chain smoking.
These days I use vapor, the safer alternative to smoking cigarettes.
The long and short of what Freddy Krueger explains is that the parents of the children took justice into their own hands and murdered him. Omitted from this explanation is the countless reduxes to his backstory that have been occurring since the very beginning. But that's to be expected. This movie has odd tendency of excluding important things from their predecessors, which leaves us with massive plot holes left and right. Get this, Freddy Krueger can't come back in this movie to terrorize the new people in Elm Street because no one remembers him, despite the previous teenagers on Elm Street in the other movies having no clue who the fuck Freddy Krueger is or the relevance surrounding him. So even though this is inconsistent to the previous things put in place in the other movies, they use this line of logic that makes no sense for the other movies to get in place so Freddy has an excuse to get Jason back into killing people on Elm Street. This is by giving Jason Voorhees a virtual simulation of murder in hell, and a nice game of Freddy being a sweet transvestite by pretending to be Mrs. Voorhees to manipulate Jason into doing his bidding. Now this is a part which confuses me, as the only reason he gets Jason to do this is so people think that it's Freddy doing the killings that Jason's doing, so he spreads more fear into the minds of the people in Elm Street, and when he has fear, he's more strong, and then he's able to kill again. So the line of reasoning is basically now he's forgotten, he can't actually come back because fear is his strength. But it's oh so clear that the cops remember Freddy, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Jason finds these group of teens having a slumber party and crunches this guy up after stabbing him with a machete, after which the group freaks out and finds the convenient cop car patrolling the street. Now upon inspection, the cops are suspicious of it being in the same house and in the same bed, so they jump to the conclusion that it was Freddy Krueger who did the crime. Pretty lucky for Freddy that Jason's line of attack was so over the top and done in a bed, or else the cops would have just assumed that it was just a randy serial killer completely unrelated to Freddy Krueger. But since they called it, how was Freddy Krueger forgotten in Elm Street exactly? It seems that the justice system knows who he is very clearly, as they're on a clear lockdown not to say his name, so it must have ran the cops' minds. Disregarding that this new rule of being forgotten is a gaping plot hole that doesn't fit in the pre-existing movies, let's say it did make sense. How in God's name would them not saying his name prevent him from coming back? This isn't Beetlejuice or Bloody Mary, at least I'm assuming we're not in that route. The power comes from being remembered, not chanting a forbidden name, and they said that in the movie. The town folks clearly remember Freddy as he's left quite an impact, so how comes he doesn't come back? Now let's get constructive here and allow me to suggest two alternative theories, one including this new rule that you've made up, and one that's more traditional with the Elm Street franchise. The first idea I have, which includes the new rule, is how about you get Freddy Krueger to bring Jason back to murder specific Elm Street kids? Get Freddy Krueger to do some mind game manipulation tactic on him into thinking that these children are damaging to his mother's reputation, so he goes out and kills them. However, these kids could be people from the previous movies who played a part, and by them being killed, it leads the cops into investigating such a collected murder, and through this they slowly discover Freddy Krueger, and he comes back and the first people he kills are the police officers, and he wreaks havoc, and has a final duel to finish the Elm Street kids, but is distracted when Jason seeks revenge on being manipulated by Freddy Krueger, so they duke it out. Or alternatively, find a way to show that Freddy has been in hell and he's been waiting for a perfect time to strike back with revenge on the people that killed him in the previous movies. But his return is on the same time Jason returns, and they both get into a conflict ready to kill each other whenever they cross paths. They go and try and kill teens, but they notice each other crossing each other, and it culminates in the third act where they lash out and attack each other. Now I understand that some people may think my ideas are shit, or maybe even worse than the ideas in the movie, but the point of us suggesting is that it's a starting point. You work on the idea. I'm not a film director, nor do I have a level of expertise, but as a consumer, I know what I myself would like to see. The story doesn't work because of the new rule. Things in the story don't work with the new rule, so it's best to scrap the new rule and go back to the roots. But if you're going to resort to contradictions, do a better job at it. So they take Laurie back to the police station to interrogate her. This is down to their suspicion that it was Freddy Krueger who did the crime. You know, for a guy really banked on people remembering him, he seems to have an entire police force that remembers him. They ask her all these questions, but she doesn't seem to know who did the crime. But she remembers one of the police officers slipping up into saying a name.
It's gotta be Freddy Krueger. Hey, don't even say that son of a bitch's name out loud.
And this triggers a nightmare from Laurie because she's asleep now, I don't fucking know. And she sees all these creepy imagery that looks like it came from a Japanese horror film, only to culminate in a jump scare. Meanwhile, Blake is mourning the death of his dickhead friend by drinking on the porch and getting yelled at like he's some depressed man in his 50s.
Somebody named Freddy.
I'm gonna take him out myself, Trey.
Apparently this threat to put a stop to Freddy is cut short when Freddy kills his nerves, but is unable to kill him.
Okay, I'm alright.
What a natural reaction.
Not strong enough yet. Well, I will be soon enough.
Apparently, as said before, Freddy's strength is determined by fear. Only in this movie, of course, but it's a now established rule that I'm pretty sure many people are going watching this going, hey, that must apply to the other movies. So Blake wakes up to see his dad, whose head can fall off like a Simpsons character.
That keeps happening.
And Blake ends up meeting a similar fate to his dad. At least that's what I'm expected to take from that scene. It's never really confirmed until later dialogue. I mean, I don't think a human could feasibly wield off a machete murderer with their dad's decapitated face, but I also don't think the movie knows that, so for a while I was left under the impression that the movie was making us think he was still alive. After all, he was okay with his encounter with Freddy.
Okay, I'm alright.
Now we're at Western Hills Psychiatric Ward to see the two teens that had an unfortunate run-in with Freddy Krueger in the past, who now have to take Hypnosil, the drug from Dream Warriors. To get the exposition out of the way, the guy with the brown hair is Will. That's Laurie's ex-boyfriend who she hasn't moved on from. Will becomes suspicious seeing a murder go on at her house. I do appreciate that they got this through a twist into thinking his concern is Freddy, but as we see later it's not. But what I don't appreciate is how the people working there have the TV on, but apparently the rules go against that when Will wants to know what's happening.
Alright, Will. You know the rule.
Where's the fucking logic in that? Will breaks out of the ward with his tread mark so they can check to see if Laurie's safe and at the best, alive. It's at this point where it's cleared up that Blake is dead too and he didn't shield himself off from the machete man himself.
He was stabbed to death.
Stabbed, so wait, like, multiple times? So I was right, or did he just keep stabbing his lifeless corpse for fun? Where do you get your kicks, Jason? To cover up for Freddy, the cops frame Blake on the killings, but thankfully Mark is there to inform the town, or at least Laurie, by scaring the shit out of her.
Who is he?
He's a child murderer that some parents from around here burned alive. Then he came back. Back for revenge in our nightmares.
And Will makes it even worse by making a feint.
Lori! Oh my god, Lori!
After their escape, they go to the library to do some catch-up, but all the news reports are blacked out, including Freddy's arrest, Freddy's death, and this kid's brother who committed suicide, because that doesn't cause suspicion.
They covered him up, Will. They never told us about Freddy because that's how they decided to beat him. They treated him like he was a fucking disease, and they locked up all the kids who made contact with him so they wouldn't infect the others.
The rest of the scene just provides exposition that's already been established, rendering this entire scene pointless, aside from the information that Mark can't remember his dreams, which ties in later. So most of this could have been cut out, but I do give credit for them being an interesting duo. The crew decides to get into a cornfield party, and Lori finally gets to have a proper reuniting with her ex Will. He lets her in on the fact that he was in a ward this entire time, but their conversation's cut short. This leads us on to focusing on Gib, who's passed out and wasted and is manipulated by Freddy into thinking her boyfriend Trey is alive when it's actually Freddy Krueger. Now she's fucked. In fact, on that thought, she nearly does buy this albino glow stick enthusiast. So this is around the point in the story where the conflict arises as Freddy sees that he now has the strength to murder people, but he doesn't have a chance as Jason keeps stealing his kills.
She's mine! Mine!
It's at this point many may complain that we're about 40 minutes into the movie and so far there's no fighting.
The only thing to fear is fear itself.
But I don't see it as an issue. I know many people might have preferred it with the primary focus being on Freddy and Jason and not on some kids that people see as generic.
It's not Freddy fights Jason, it's Freddy versus Jason, so there's a lot of mind game and a lot of manipulation.
But it seems like a shoddy way of implying that an hour-and-a-half action non-stop film would be better. While it may have been good to show the conflict in more extensive detail, it makes it feel connected to the other stories with the references and attention to detail paying attention to the victims, which is what both franchises have always done. Now, it may seem tedious when you want to watch a movie with them fighting, but with a movie that already has inconsistencies relating to the plot, I do give credit at the very least for them staying true to the developing the victims, at least somewhat. It at least gives us a reason to give a fuck when they die. Some of them are pretty fucking entertaining, like this group of stoners who encounter Jason. It's quite amusing to see some high dudes not taking the hockey maniac seriously.
You weren't involved!
That is, before he turns this guy's world upside down. I know the franchise and the movie itself have never been known for having realism, or with a telekinesis and zombified killer, but some things are just goofy. You gotta make up for it though by having a flaming Jason chase this fat stoner with a flaming machete and throw it like it's target practice. Admittedly a badass scene. When they all flee, we get a scene of them driving away and Will revealing that he saw Laurie's father kill her mother.
The reason I was sent to Weston is because I saw your dad kill your mom.
Which causes conflict, which is a good time for Laurie to play the beta woman in a fight who screams and tries to get her to stop. How fun.
See, you didn't understand. You still don't. You were confused.
Stop it! Both of you! Stop it!
Damn it, Will. I am not going to let you endanger my daughter again.
Stop it!
Everything that's happened.
Stop it! Stop it! Ah!
After bailing the fuck out of there, they drive their way to Mark, who seems to have an unfortunate run-in with Freddy Krueger. Again, which sucks to them since they needed him, as he's the expert and all. When this is the guy who's your expert, you know you'd be screwed even with him alive. But they lose Mark and get a new recruitment. A police officer who gives the backstory to Jason since New Line didn't have the rights to show the footage they needed to paint the picture instead of them taking it themselves. But due to Laurie's dream run-in with Freddy again, she learns what Nancy found out many films before, that you can take Freddy out of your dream. Unfortunately, she just got an earlobe. They do figure out that the hypnosil that Will and Mark took were beneficial as they prevented dreams, which is where Freddy attacks. You could still sleep, but you'd have no dreams. So they break into the ward to take the drugs, but it appears that Freeburg already has some.
Oh, that's better.
Fuck, I want what he's having. An avid weed smoker high off one toke? That must be some good shit. So Mr. Magoo takes a close inspection of the banging door only to get completely fucked up by Jason. Freeburg is now completely high and Freddy... Okay, what the fuck? First off, what the fuck is that? Second of all, Freddy can now get you when you're high? If that's the case, he's in the real world now. Someone tell Laurie because the stoner just figured it out. Just get fucking high. For people on a drug search and that's all you needed? Some good old pot? So Freddy possesses Freeburg, which again means Freddy is in the real world now since he can possess people. Not inconsistent, just weird knowing, considering that the way he did it was already done in the real world. Just because someone's high doesn't mean they're asleep, just dazed off the blaze. Freeburg, now possessed by Freddy, flushes all the drugs, and Jason kills the officer. Freeburg now gets the tranquilizers, as Freddy, and corners Jason, which is pretty fucking badass in all honesty, even if the setup was cheap.
Now, come on!
Let me handle this, bitch.
So the possessed Freeburg knocks out Jason, and now Freeburg is also dead, and Freddy has Jason right where he belongs, asleep. But if the guy was in the real world, why didn't he just fight him there? If he was scared about getting damaged, 1, I didn't know Freddy was a pussy, and 2, if he can possess people, it's only their body he's damaging. Just flip bodies and inadvertently get Jason to kill the kids and then kill Jason. Problem solved. So Freddy breaks the character of Mrs. Voorhees, which pisses off Jason, but due to him being in the dream world, Freddy is unbeatable. And due to Jason's foreseen powers, which was explained in the less realistic movies, it leaves him evenly ranked as he can't even die either. The only difference being Jason now has an exposed weakness. Water. This is the same guy who's been in water countless times in the previous film, so if it didn't stop him then, why now? In his big fight with Freddy Krueger. Oh that's right, because it's a plot convenience. Now it's one thing to have a flaw in a movie, but it's another thing when you have a flaw which could easily be avoided by just a simple rewrite. They had plenty of time to pace the movie out and think it through. 10 years to be exact. But unfortunately they didn't, which is a flaw which admittedly pisses me off. So the big bad machete wielding Jason Voorhees is now seen shaken in fear and crawled up in the fetal position. So Freddy takes advantage and tries to find his deepest secrets. As we can see in his secrets, he's in fucking water! You just proved your own logic wrong in the span of seconds. You proved it wrong in your own fucking movie. This isn't just inconsistent to the Friday the 13th franchise, it's now inconsistent in the fucking movie you're making where you rewrite the fucking inconsistency. The crew is driving to Crystal Lake, so when Jason fights Freddy, he'll be in his home place and will fuck off. So this is around the time Laurie goes to sleep so she can get Freddy back into the real world for this plan to come into full effect. She ends up in Jason's dream, because reasons, and sees Jason getting bullied by a crowd of kids, and when Jason wakes up during this, Freddy gets pissed off and changes the targets to Laurie instead, who can't seem to wake up now due to Jason causing a bit of a distraction. So Freddy decides to cut her up a little and attempt to rape her in a dream world as Jason sets the real world ablaze, which causes her to wake up in a panic, and now Freddy's in the real world. As someone who enjoys this movie, I do have to say that the fighting is a fucking blast. Just watching Jason toss this smaller guy around like he's a piece of trash is just so fun. The rest try to flee, but Freddy finds them.
Freddy!
And so does Tia, who uses herself as a distraction of Freddy by mocking his Christmas sweater.
What kind of faggot runs around in a Christmas sweater?
Fucking savage. She even lays an insult about his cock size, and Jason's in a complimentary manner.
You trying to compensate for something? You got these teensy-weensy little things, and Jason has got this big old thing like...
Maybe that CPR turned her on. So Jason lightly rejects her, and they both get back into their fight.
Man, the torpedo.
I always fucking love that line. Laurie joins in from the sidelines by setting the pier on fire. If you thought they were safe, you thought fucking wrong. Jason, I mean Freddy, comes back to lay in the final attack with Jason's signature weapon. So Jason returns the copycat behaviour by stealing his signature weapon and returning it back, leaving Freddy stunned enough to get his head cut off.
Welcome to my world, bitch!
Now since Jason is the one who's the least damaged, it would seem like he's won, especially if he's returning right here. But you'd think wrong. Also, if he's afraid of water, wouldn't he be shivering at the sight of having to get out? Seems like a very calm, collected wuss. Also, in the spirit of a Versus movie, they ended on a tie. This doesn't really deter me from liking the movie though. Sure, it's heavily flawed up the ass, inconsistent, and sometimes outright silly, but overall it's a fun movie as fuck to watch with friends. And in my opinion, it's a good send-off to both the franchises respectively. Now if you're going into this movie with high expectations, this isn't the movie for you. If you're looking for mindless fun, give it a watch. You won't be missing out.